So, day 4. Today, I want to talk about the things that I've lost interest in. And one of the things that I have, lost interest in is the yearly smartphone, battle, the yearly smartphone releases. Because let's be honest, I'm sure most of you guys are also tired of it by now, that most smartphones kind of look the same these days. And I'm honestly tired of it. And I'm not saying that companies should like change things just for the sake of changing it. I'm just saying that it has gone stale at this point. Just look at Samsung's S Galaxy S line. From the S23 and even the leaks, up until the leaks of the S26 Ultra, no big changes are gonna happen, or no big changes have happened since the S23. And that's just boring right now. It just feels stale, I guess. I understand it. Don't fix what's not broken, but at the same time, the minor changes don't what am I saying? The minor changes don't make a big difference, because that is basically it, right? I think what I'm saying is, don't try. Lost my train of thought. I think what I'm saying is that companies need to bring back experimenting on their designs. Another thing that I am not really a big fan of is companies trying to copy each other. And okay, I'm gonna sound stupid here, but I really don't like Oppo and OnePlus having the same design for their flagships this year. And I understand that both are under the same umbrella company, but still, they didn't used to do that. Yes, their flagships looked similar, but they weren't really the same. They had some major changes that is really obvious to differentiate between them. But now, if you if they didn't put the Hasselblad logo or the company logo on their phones, I wouldn't really be able to tell them apart technically. And I get it, they want to save costs, but come on. And that doesn't even go for how people are accusing them of copying Apple, because technically they have copied Apple. And yes, I'm not saying Apple has the best design and all that. I understand and what Oppo and what OnePlus is trying to do. They're trying to capture Apple's market, trying to capture Apple users to buy their phones and have something that feels familiar to them. And not all for that, but I totally get it. I get why they're doing that. They're trying to get Apple's market share. But at some point, I'm not saying needs to stop, because sometimes copying can lead to innovating. But at some point, when you just blatantly copy and not innovate, it's just not fun anymore. And going to Apple, I get why they have basically done the same thing for almost like how many generations of their phones. And I get it, they've done it since the beginning, just minor changes. But at that time, even the minor changes actually made a difference. You don't see the iPhone 3G looking too or very close to the iPhone 4, and you don't see the iPhone 4 having a similar look or a very close look with no changes compared to the iPhone 5. And same with the iPhone 6. I mean, yes, they did have similarities just to like make them recognizable. And I'm not even an Apple fanboy. I'm using an Apple now to record this, but this is my first Apple phone. But I used to think that because at the time they looked similar, I didn't notice that the changes were actually obvious from one generation to the next generation. They had similar, like for example, builds with the literal slab style candy bar from the iPhone 4 to the 5. Then they changed the look or the handling with smoother edges to the iPhone 6, but you still recognize that it's an Apple product because of certain design cues, I guess. And at that time I used to hate it because for me from the front they look really similar even though the back has changed. But today front and back they're all the same, and it's much worse. And I guess that's what I that's what I miss about phones from back in the day. Having similar design cues but still changing just enough or more than enough to make it look different and feel different. And that's what Apple was good at in the beginning. But I guess from the 11 onwards, they've basically kept the same design for years now. And I get it. Most Apple users like the familiarity. That's why they use Apple. And when the 17 Pro came out, a lot of people, yeah, I'm not gonna say a lot of people objectively, but I noticed a lot more people, and even especially Apple fans, hated. They hated how it looked, how the 17 Pro models looked, because it wasn't really familiar. And I get it. People are gonna say they hate it because they use aluminum and all that. Yes, I get that they use cheaper materials why did I even use air quotes? They did use cheaper materials and technically increase the pricing. But just in terms of the design alone, not even talking about the materials, people still really didn't like the changes. And I guess that us consumers are to blame as well. And I'm not blaming consumers because we've made the companies feel stale, we've made them less innovative. I'm saying that the familiarity with certain designs by consumers have made companies realize that they don't need to change much in order to have consumers buy their products. Because yes, there are portions of us consumers that want change year by year. We want the designs to change and all that. We want the cameras to change and all that. But most consumers out there are just basic consumers. They don't really want change, and I guess that's why most designs, and I guess most companies can't please everyone, and that's why they prefer to not change too much in order to so that they don't detract users. I've talked too much about smartphone designs. Let's just move along. I have a whole list here. I have a whole list of things that I've lost interest in, and we're just in the first part. Okay, about still on smartphones, the performance. I guess the performance has plateaued. The speed race is almost the same. Yes, some chips are faster compared to others, and it also depends on the phone optimization and all that. But all in all, the only spec bump that matters right now, I personally believe, is the battery tech. That's the only thing that really matters. Apart from that, when it comes to the chip, when it comes to the RAM, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. Of course it matters to a portion of people, but for most users, it doesn't really matter at all, because phones from 5-6 years ago are still usable unless the software isn't supported, and the software will be the limiting factor for now, because of the security patches and all that. That's how I understand it. The software is the limiting factor, not the chip performance, not all that. And again, as I said, the only tech that would matter is the battery tech, because as phones get thinner and as people want smaller phones, thinner phones, companies need to innovate on battery tech to make them smaller in physical size but have bigger capacities. And they have done it, or they have started to do it with silicon carbon technology. But I guess it's still in the early stages, and not all phone manufacturers are implementing it. But that's where it can go in the future. That's one thing that will make a big difference, because even flagships, most Android flagships have more or less the same chips, the same performance. When it comes to the camera tech, I guess making bigger sensors, but that will make phones bigger, have um, what's that called? For the iPhone, it's called the plateau. I forgot the technical term, what they really call it. The bump, the camera bump. Bigger sensors will make the camera bump bigger. Lens technology will make the camera bump bigger if they can solve that. But technically, if you want bigger sensors, you would want bigger lenses, right? So that means bigger phones. Would you want to carry a bigger phone with you all day? No, right? So even in camera tech, things technically has plateaued. Yes, companies like Vivo, Oppo, and Samsung used to be like the pioneer of this, and even the Google Pixel have like the zoom ranges. I'm talking about the zoom ranges. The zoom ranges, the camera quality, people were raving about that yesteryear, but now it's technically hard to discern, to differentiate between each camera. So yeah, even camera tech, smartphone camera tech has plateaued. Only the software is changing, and that goes on to the next thing that I'm gonna talk about, still on the smartphones. AI. I'm honestly tired of companies focusing on AI. I mean, yes, it's cool at first. Samsung AI, the object removal is awesome. I've used it on my previous phone and it's awesome. It's much better than Apple Intelligence, but at what point do we say that it's enough? I mean, think about it. Companies trickle down the improvements, either purposely or not. They are still trickling down the improvements. You're not seeing big improvements in AI tech when it comes to smartphones. It's all basically the same thing. What? Trying to put your ideas, your screenshots, your voice memos into a folder. Most companies try to do that. I don't know if most companies do it good, but most want or implement that type of AI technology. Object removal, yes, Apple Intelligence still not here, and the object removal still sucks. But even though Google is doing good job technically, and Samsung is doing good job at item removal from photos, object removal, still the same thing, not really an innovation. What? 3, direct translation from phone calls. Almost all companies have that feature as AI feature. So I'd rather them like take a break from AI for 1 or 2 years, just skip to the few generations ahead, give us something big rather than trickle down. the small minor improvements, honestly. And that goes for smartphones as a whole. I'd rather them skip 1 or 2 years and then just give us something big. Just give us big improvements, big design changes. I think it's just funny when you think about it. And it's true when people say that most phone companies are just milking consumers, trying to convince them to get the latest, greatest thing when it's all the same at the end of the day. And I'm not gonna say that I don't do that, but I do that. I notice that I do that less these days. I guess since I got my last phone, the Fold 4, I wasn't really interested in the next big thing because everything new that came along that Fold 4 can do or has as close to the performance as the latest product that came out. And I guess speaking of which, maybe the innovation has come into folding tech, and that has technically plateaued because now it's a race to who has the slimmer folding phone, or who has the ability to fold the phone more compared to their competitors. And I guess who can put better camera tech into folding phones. And that is getting more and more stale each year as well. Yeah, I had more things to touch on, but I guess those can be for the next video. And that's day 4. Bye.